This is the Kali Linux Dojo Workshop number 1, rolling your own, generating custom Kali Linux 2.0 ISOs. And your speaker is Matti Aharoni.
Great. So this is working, right? Hello, everyone. I am ecstatic to be here today because this is essentially the first time that we will be displaying and giving public access to Kali 2.0 to the crowds. So I'm all like fidgety and all happy about this. We have a couple of sessions today, a couple of workshops today. The first one being customization of Kali, rolling your own ISOs, configuring all sorts of aspects in this build process. And then the second workshop will be based on using Kali in a live boot environment, running off USBs with all sorts of cool features like persistence, like encryption, like Lux nuke stuff. So it's going to be an interesting couple of sessions today. My name is Matti Aharoni, and I am the founder of the Kali Linux project. And I think perhaps before we begin, what I'd like to have everyone do, since this is going to be a very hands-on environment, this is a workshop after all, is just make sure that everyone is set up properly. And what that requires us to do is just make sure that your laptops are connected, that you're getting IP addresses, and perhaps we had a tad bit of issues setting up here, but last moment everything worked out. What I'd like to make sure is that you guys are able to resolve several addresses belonging to the Kali repositories, which are actually sitting here up front, and make sure that these addresses are internal. And what this will make sure is that when you guys are downloading stuff and bootstrapping stuff, this happens over the local network and not going through the internet, which would be obviously much slower. So if you could quickly just ping a couple of addresses, http.kali.org, and if you see that you're resolving externally, like I am here, if you see that you're resolving an external address for kali.org, http.kali.org is a good one, then what I'd like to ask you all to do is to change your hosts file on the machines that we'll be using to build Kali. So this is probably on your Kali 1.0 VMware machines. And the three addresses that we should be editing is going to be http.kali.org, archive.kali.org, and security.kali.org. And depending on where you're seated, if you guys are seated over here, then the addresses are going to be whatever address that you got a DHCP address from, and then .2, and that should give us local repository resolution, again, rather than going out to the internet. So could you just take a couple of minutes, make sure that your environment is set up. If needed, once you've done this, just make sure that your Kali VM is updated. And once we've done that, we'll all be ready to rock and roll. Fortunately, we have several assistants with us today. They'll be wearing Kali Linux t-shirts. So if you have issues, if things don't work out for you, just raise your hand, and these guys will be running across doing their rounds. So as you guys start setting up, what I'd like to do is just give a few introductions and perhaps start yapping away and tell you a bit about Kali 2.0. This will be a good opportunity so that we make the best of our time here, because we do have rather short sessions and quite a lot to try to achieve during these next 45 minutes. Can I just quickly see a show of hands? Who is actually managing to resolve local repositories? Okay, a few of us. So once again, my name is Matti Aharoni, also known as Mats. And as I was telling you earlier, the two dojos that we'll be running today are essentially really cool features within Kali. These features have existed in Kali 1.0, but perhaps now with the imminent release of 2.0, there is warrant to actually look at these features, revisit them, and just bask in their glory, because they really are pretty cool. So again, the first workshop that we'll be covering today is fully customizing your Kali ISO builds. And what I'd like to do is extend our everlasting thanks to the Black Hat team, who've been running around here like headless chickens, trying to fix everything and make everything work, and they've done an amazing job. So please, a hands of applause to all these guys who are just... So what is Kali Linux? I'll go through these slides fairly quickly. I assume that if you're here, you pretty much know what we're talking about. An open source penetration testing distribution developed by Offensive Security. This is something that I keep on saying. I'm somewhat of an evangelist when it comes to trying to explain that Kali Linux is more than just a collection of penetration testing tools. It's actually a fully fledged penetration testing platform which has lots of cool and unique features designed to help penetration testers in their workflow and in their work at large. And these features are quite interesting and quite unique. For example, before I start laying it on you, has anyone heard of the Lux Nuke feature in Kali Linux? Yeah, so this is exactly the reason that we're running these workshops, to get these features out there, to make people aware of what we actually have in Kali Linux. I'll just give you a quick heads up. Lux Nuke is a small feature in Kali that allows us to self-destruct our hard drive at the press of a button during a Lux boot. So imagine a situation where you need to quickly destroy data on a disk. You boot up your full disk encryption setup. One password will boot things up, and another password will completely destroy your drive. We'll talk about the benefits of this later on. So again, this is one of many features, and I'd like to give a very quick overview of possibly the most popular features in Kali. And if I had a laser pointer, that would be cool. Yeah. So one interesting feature over there, we'll start just looking at the graphics of things. Forensics live boot. So Kali allows us to boot into a live environment which is forensically sound, which is awesome for anyone doing forensics work. Live CD building, which is what we're going to be looking at today in this workshop. So customizing Kali and making it fit the job that it's required to do. Lots of ARM support. We have pretty much full ARM support and a whole collection of ARM devices that Kali can be installed on, from Raspberry Pis to BeagleBone Blacks to Odroids to all sorts of funky Chrome laptops. So it's pretty interesting. The fourth image there depicts the live USB features, and this is something that we'll be seeing in Workshop 2. Then we have all our Amazon and Docker images, which are pretty cool. You need to quickly deploy Kali somewhere. You go to Amazon, you go to Docker, you get your setup there, and you have instant Kali, which is nice. And then NetHunter. Anyone heard of NetHunter, by the way? Yeah, NetHunter. Cool little operating system based on Kali, open source. You install it on your Nexus device or OnePlus device, and you've got this awesome hacking tool. Lux Nuke, which was adeptly imaged with your hard drive blowing up. And then, of course, we have quite extensive accessibility support. So blind users are actually able to use Kali for penetration testing purposes. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this, but I'll take this opportunity to point you in the direction of our Kali Linux teaser. I'll skip this because we're a little short on time, but we had an awesome video that was teasing everyone about how awesome Kali is with a few screenshots and video takes of the new GNOME 3 interface. You can check that online later on. We'll save 3 minutes by skipping this. Since we will be building Kali 2.0 here for the first time, I thought it probably a good idea to give you a few words about what's new. After all, it isn't a big move for us from Kali 1 to Kali 2, and this would be a perfect platform for me to sort of just point out the big differences. So, I mean, there's the usual stuff. You know, stuff has been updated. So now we're working on GNOME 3.14, kernel 4.0, based on Debian Jessie. So that's all nice, but it's, at the end of the day, a side effect of the real changes that have happened in Kali 2.0. And I think possibly the most significant change from 1.0 to 2.0 is that now we're running as a rolling distribution. And what that means is that essentially we've set up our backend to support, or let me say this differently. As a rolling distribution now, we'll be pulling all our updates from Debian testing. And what that does is it upgrades all of Kali and all of the packages in Kali across the board to be more updated on an ongoing basis. And I'm talking about libraries, I'm talking about tools. So we'll be starting to have updated dependencies as well. And this is good news for anyone who's been using Kali 1.0 and suddenly some lib something or other was too old of a version for their tool and they needed to have that updated. So this is really, really big news as far as we're concerned, because this essentially upgrades Kali immediately across the board to be using much newer packages for everything. So that's one aspect. The second aspect, upstream monitoring of tool updates. This is a cool feature that we've implemented which helps us poll and check new versions of penetration testing tools as they are released. So if you're a tool developer, you've gone to your GitHub repo, you've updated your tool, you git tag your new release, our upstream checking system will identify that and notify us that tool so-and-so needs to be updated. And hopefully that way we'll have continuous and ongoing updates of tools as they happen through the community. So that's pretty good as far as we're concerned. Those are probably the two major changes between 1.0 and 2.0. I mean, again, apart from the obvious of all the tools being updated and all these features getting a facelift. And perhaps one of the most visually obvious differences is the user interface, which has gotten a massive upgrade. Going specifically into live build, which is again what we'll be doing today. Basically, live build is a set of wrapper scripts around Bootstrap, Deb Bootstrap, and what these scripts allow you to do is to pull down all the components required to build a Kali ISO, while in the middle allowing you to interact with the various stages of the build and thus allowing you to customize all sorts of aspects of the build. So for example, if you want to add or remove tools, you don't want tool A, but you do want tool B. Or perhaps you want to insert some of your own custom tools into Kali, or perhaps it might just be something cosmetic, like changing a desktop, a wallpaper. So it really allows you, Live Build really allows you to get as deep as you want into the customization and change whatever you need. And this is obviously nice because this allows you to match the tool to the job that you're about to do. So if you're going on an assessment, you're limited in space, you're limited in resources, building a slim Kali ISO, which has only wireless tools, is very simple. It's very easy. And again, this is what we'll be doing today. So a bit of background about, regarding Live Build, just a bit of terminology because we'll be seeing this as we start our exercises. Generally speaking, Live Build is separated into 3 stages. So we have the bootstrapping stage, which is where Live Build pulls down all the packages required to build Kali. We have the CH root stage, which is where the bootstrapped environment builds on additional meta packages that we might want included. So, if you want wireless or password cracking tools or any one of additional packages that exist in Kali. And this is also where you can make changes in the CH root environment, such as changing wallpapers and running additional hook scripts, etc. And then the last stage is the binary stage, where everything that we've downloaded and everything that we've modified is coalesced into one ISO file, and that ISO file is then ready for us for use. And perhaps one thing worth noting is that the Kali ISO is what's known as an ISO hybrid file. And what this means is that the ISO is bootable as an ISO, obviously, but then if you take that ISO and you DD it to, say, a USB stick, that USB stick is now bootable. So there's a little flag at the beginning of the ISO which also makes the ISO bootable from a USB environment. So that's pretty cool. The way the ISO is actually built is through a set of configuration files. And these configuration files can include, again, we'll see this as we start building the ISOs, but these configuration files include every single aspect of the ISO build. And different configuration files will affect different stages of the actual build. So here are a few of these configuration files. These are probably the most important ones, especially the ones that we'll be touching today. And you can see what configuration files affect what aspects of the build. So for example, if you want to precede your ISO, which is a very cool feature that, again, we'll be doing today, imagine that you're tired of installing Kali tirelessly, by pressing enter, 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 root, tor, enter, enter, yes, submit. So you can actually automate that whole process by preceding the ISO, plopping it into your VM or plopping it into your machine, booting it up, and then the whole installation happens automatically. So that's a cool feature. Packages.list, dash list, that's the file that contains the packages that we want included in our build. So that's pretty cool. Hooks, this is a really interesting option. You can actually run bash scripts at different stages of the build, again, to change or update configurations. For example, one of the things that we'll be doing is we'll be enabling the SSH service by default on our ISO, so that when you boot the ISO, the SSH service will come up automatically. Overlaying files, so include chroot. Imagine that you would like to add your own files to the file system, so this allows you to literally overlay files. If you have some custom scripts that you want to add to your build, then this is the directory that you can do that. And of course, all of these configurations, I actually went ahead, but all of these configurations and all of the live build directory can be found here at our Git repo, Kali Git repo. So essentially, Git cloning that, and you have the default setup that we use to release our ISOs. Okay, and then on top of that, you can start configuring your stuff. So here is the secret sauce, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm talking with a slight smug look on my face because essentially, once you Git cloned our repository, our live build repository, this is how you would build ISOs. Now, another change that we've implemented in Kali 2 is the ability to integrate all sorts of different desktop managers, desktop environments. So GNOME, KDE, XFCE, all buildable through live build really, really easily. So for example, now if you'd like to have a KDE Kali ISO, you just git clone our live build config, build.sh -- variant KDE, press enter, and bam, you have a KDE Kali ISO. Of course, you can also specify architecture. So if you want to build a 32 or 64-bit ISO, that's pretty simple. And you can also specify distribution. By distribution, I'm talking about Kali 1, which had the code name of Moto, and Kali 2, which has the code name of Sana. So essentially, to build a Kali 2 ISO, cough, cough, that would be the syntax that you need to give. And the fact is that we really appreciate all this anticipation to Kali 2, but that command has been available for about 4 months now. Just saying. So this is probably the easiest and quickest way to build a fully fledged Kali 2 ISO. Okay, but before we do this, let's just wait because we have some additional features that we'd like to change. So before we just go ahead and try to build a fully fledged Kali ISO, what I'd like to do is to make some additional changes in our ISO, perhaps make it a bit smaller so that we'll manage to complete the exercise and the actual build in time, because we're rather limited in time today. And perhaps demonstrate some additional modifications and customizations that are possible using live build. Another feature, by the way, that we've introduced into Kali is the ability to build a light version of Kali. And this is an official, this will be part of our official release. So with our 3.3 gig ISO files, with Kali running GNOME, we'll also be releasing smaller ISO files of around 1 gig in size, which will be running XFCE with a limited tool set. So having a light variant is going to be quite interesting, especially for resource-constrained environments. Okay, so let's jump in straight into this exercise, start building our own ISO. We'll be doing several customizations. One of the customizations, which in my opinion are probably the coolest of all the things that we'll be doing today, is we'll be making a self-installing ISO, or in other words, we'll be preceding our build to include another boot menu option that, when chosen, will simply run across an installation with unattended access. So we just press that boot option and the installation will start and complete. And this is nice for deployments, whether you're doing this secretively in some network and you just plop in a USB key and boot a machine and have it install, or perhaps if you're sending an ISO to a client, which you'd like to have a specific setup of Kali over there. Another thing that we'll be doing, and this should actually freak you out a bit, because we'll be enabling the SSH service at boot time, but don't worry, because another change at Kali 2.0 is that, at least for now, root logins are disabled from remote, so you actually can't SSH with password Tor. You can only SSH with your key setup, with your SSH key setup. So one of the things that we'll be doing to this ISO is we'll be enabling a service, in this case SSH, to start at boot time, and we will overlay our SSH public key into Kali so that we'll be able to log in with this keyless mechanism. So this will be demonstrating a couple of things. This will demonstrate an SSH hook that we'll be adding, and this will demonstrate SSH key file overlay that we'll be adding. Finally, we have to do this. Custom wallpaper, again, an overlay example of how we can take a PNG file, plop it in the right place, and then have a custom wallpaper for whatever it is that we're trying to do. So what I'd like you to do now is essentially open up your browsers and go to whatever network you're at. If you've changed, I think I'm locked up. If you've changed your IP address, or if your stuff resolves properly, so you could just go to archive.cali.org. If not, then just browse to your local repository, which is usually at O2, and go to workshop 01.txt. And hopefully what that should have is a text file with the set of commands, and you're not seeing this, sorry, just a sec. So hopefully what you should be seeing is a text file with a set of commands that you will be running from your Kali VMs, again, against our repositories. And these commands will set you up for a Kali build with the modifications that we've just described a slide earlier. So I'll try doing this here. So I'm actually no longer connected to this repository. I see. No, I actually had an uplink to this guy. Can I reconnect? Here it was. This guy. I see. That's not gonna work because I don't have internet access on that now. So I need to be able to connect to this repository as well. Which cable? Okay. So I should be getting DHCP from this. And then from here. Okay. So I'll SSH to our repository here, and I'll be working locally. Okay, so I guess the first thing to do is git clone the default live build config setup. And again, coming from our Git servers, this has all the goodness required to build any Kali ISO that you would ever wish, any distribution, any desktop manager, any distribution. So again, this is Kali 1 or Kali 2. Probably easier if you actually download the file itself, because then you can copy paste the command with minimum errors. Once we're in the live build configuration file, can you actually see that well? Should I zoom in a bit perhaps? There you go. The first thing we want to do is we're going to be building a light variant of Kali. So one of the things that we can do is quickly plop into the Kali config directory, choose the variant that we want to edit, and hit the kali.list.chroot file, which essentially contains all the packages and all the tools that we would like to have installed in this ISO. So for example, we want to have crypt setup added to this list. We want to have gparted added to this list. Perhaps we want to have nmap added to this list. And this is how you can essentially configure the type of packages and type of tools installed in Kali during the build. Again, we'll be choosing a very minimal tool set just so that the build will complete fast here in the Dojo. Once we have that, the next thing that we can start doing is configuring hooks. And again, hooks are scripts, bash scripts, that we can run at various stages of the build. So one hook that I'd like to configure is an SSH hook that will give the command to enable SSH at boot time in the chroot stage. Okay, so update rc-f ssh enable, and that command will go into the hooks directory into a file that I specify. I'll make that file executable and then continue. So now, the next configuration that we want to do is to set up an unattended boot option, remember? So all I need is a pre-seed file, which can actually be found here. So, unattended. Where is that file? There it is. Okay, so this is what the unattended .txt file looks like. This file will essentially add a boot option that will allow us to run an unattended installation. So we just continue by adding this file to our live build config. What's the IP address of this guy? 10 dot. I see. Okay, so can someone give me a call on what IP address this guy has? 10.15.57, correct. .2, thank you. So I'll just quickly set up my host file as I recommended that you do yours. Great, so I download, again, this is a hook that will add a boot option to the ISO, and I'll make it executable as well. And an interesting exercise to do is to actually list the hooks that already exist in our live build configs and just see what it is that we do when we build our official releases. It's actually interesting to peek inside there and see. It's quite educational. Then what we'd like to do is we'd like to add a wallpaper, a custom wallpaper that we've made for this occasion. So we overlay, or we prepare a directory which will overlay the wallpaper file. This file is going to be in user share images desktop base. So once we do that, we can now download our custom wallpaper and perhaps generate some SSH keys and add our key to the Kali live build configuration files. And then lastly, we want to actually add the pre-seed file itself that will allow us to run the unattended installation of Kali. Let me quickly show you what that looks like. It's actually an answer file for various questions that are asked during the installation of Kali. So for example, stuff like, what do you want the root password to be? Or what language would you like the installation to be? How would you like the hard disk to be partitioned and set up and formatted? So these are essentially questions that you're asked during the build itself, and by doing this, essentially what you're doing is you're pre-answering all those questions, again, allowing you to precede the installation however you feel like. Once you're happy with all the configurations and all the overlays that you've done, what's left to do is just run build.sh. Again, specify the variant that you're interested in, so variant light in our case. Distribution SANA, which is Kali 2, as opposed to Motto, which is Kali 1. And a bit of verbosity never hurt anyone. Hitting enter. This is something that shouldn't happen. apt get update. And let's take the opportunity to apt get install live build. So I'm just updating live build to the latest version. Make sure that you've done this as well. And hopefully when we run this now, our ISO should start building. And this process can take anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, or perhaps even more, depending on your hardware and depending on your internet speed. Again, if we're doing this locally over the local network, then things should be faster. What I'd like you guys to start doing is repeating this. Start building your Kali 2.0 XFCE ISOs, minimal ISOs. Remember that we'll have a minimal set of tools, Nmap, Aircrack, and perhaps one or two tools more than that. Of course, you can then apt get install whatever you like. So as this is building here, let's start building our ISOs over on your side. And if you have issues, just raise your hand and one of our guys will come and help you out. As this is happening, of course, we've actually done this ahead of time. I'd like to take the opportunity to just leave my screen open and show you what this results in, the actual ISO that this results in. So if I delete this VM and I quickly recreate it, one thing to note is that Kali 2.0 requires more than 512 megabytes of RAM. So one thing that I like to do is just give this a bit more juice, perhaps a bit more CPU power. And then if I choose to boot from my recently built ISO, this is an ISO that I built yesterday, but it used exactly the same process, then the resultant of what we're actually building today looks similar to this. Okay, we boot the ISO, we suddenly have a new boot option, which is called unattended install. This is not something that's there usually. If we choose this, then very hopefully what we should see is that now we have a hands-off, fully unattended installation of Kali 2.0. Now this can have all sorts of implications. I mean, it's cool if you're a network admin, or it's cool if you're trying to be sneaky and deploy, an installation of Kali in an internal network through VMware or whatever. You just plop in your USB, just plop in a CD, turn the machine on, and everything happens automatically. So go ahead, start this process. Please remember, if you download the Workshop 01 text file, it should be as simple as copy-pasting the commands into your terminal, and things should just work.
Are they available on the internet too?
Is what available on the internet?
That text file workshop?
We have an email, bribes@offsec.com. No, they're not available on the internet, but it's not a problem for us to make it available. I'm just trying to think of possibly the best place to put this. Docs. We'll plop this on docs.kali.org/workshop 01 and workshop 02. Okay? Probably after this session today. If you have any issues, just yell and scream. And again, try to make your builds as minimal as possible so that we'll manage to complete the build here in time. I'll be walking amongst you. If you have questions, if you have issues, then just raise your hands. You really can't imagine the efforts that the Black Hat guys have made to make this dojo happen. I'm just overwhelmed by the amount of running around that has happened here today. AMAP, yep. Yes, apt get update, and then apt get install live dash build. Okay, this was on the first slide. You need to make sure that your live build is updated to the latest version. Have you edited your etc hosts file? Can I see it? Hosts file, not your resolve file. Okay, etc hosts. Show me your etc hosts. Oh, actually that looks good, doesn't it? Oh, that looks not good. The IP looks wrong. Show me your etc host file. And you also need to update your live build. Let me quickly show you the second slide. So in our second slide, we needed to update some stuff. You see this here? So just make sure that you're running the latest version of live build after you've apt get updated. And then you'll be good to roll with generated Kali 2.0 ISOs. Now, as the build is working here, it's actually moving at a nice speed. You'll be able to see the various processes involved in the Kali live build. So again, this is the 3 stages: the bootstrapping, the chroot stage, and the binary stage. How is it working out for you here? Yeah, that's one thing. Once we're done with this, check your etc host file and make sure that you're pointing to .2 as your local repo. No, just hosts, etc hosts. Yep. So what you need to do here is this. If you haven't changed your etc host file, look at this. Hooks are being executed now. So any customizations, any scripts that we had, in this case it was enabling SSH, boot up. If you haven't updated your host file, what you need to do is have something like this in place. Was it 10.15.57.2? Or not? It's roots. So if you haven't edited your host file, this is what it should look like. You should have these 3 entries, and then you'll resolve the repositories locally. Which one? Host file? So how's it going on your side? Things building? Yep. Nice. So how's the level of anticipation for the end of the build? Yes? No? I'm seeing a few smiles. Building going on okay over there? Now it's just a matter of a waiting game. So while you guys are waiting, I'd like to show you a couple of things. Anyone heard of the Kali Linux ISO of Doom? Yeah, you guys need to read our blog post a bit more. Pardon? Post file. You guys need to read our blog post a bit more. Kali.org, come on. Let me quickly show you one of the live build recipes that we've done. Can anyone give me a call out for time, by the way? How are we doing with time? 10:38, and how long do I have until the end of this session? Great, so I have a few minutes to blab away. ISO of Doom. Check this bad boy out. Actually, I might not have internet access. I actually have a slide of this, so I'll describe it instead. So if you Google Kali Linux ISO of Doom, you'll end up finding a blog post that talks about something like this. And this is a live build recipe which builds an ISO that self-installs, much like we did here today, and it has a few configuration options that at boot time, what's going to happen is that a VPN connection will be made to a pre-configured server, and you'll essentially get a VPN tunnel coming out. So imagine that you need to do an internal assessment somewhere across the globe. You send your client an ISO file. They take that file, they install it in a VMware environment, in a VM perhaps. There's nothing that the client needs to do other than just boot up the ISO. The ISO self-installs, and once a reboot happens, then the ISO will automatically connect to the VPN, do all the magic networking stuff, and give you access into the internal network through that reverse VPN connection. So this is what we called the Kali Linux ISO of Doom, because it was pretty cool. You just drop your Kali machine here, and then the reverse VPN connection happens, traversing the firewall and bridging the two networks. So bridging the attacker network and the internal network. And these are the type of things that you can do with live build. You can create amazing pre-set up, pre-cooked recipes of Kali, which again will match the job that you're trying to do. At the end of the day, it's all about matching the right tool for the right job. So this is continuing. We look like we're close to the end of this build. It might take a few more minutes, so we might run a tad bit into the break. See, there's a question here. Yes. Are most of you going to be staying for the second dojo as well? Okay, that's cool. Because those of you who do will be using the ISO that you created for the second stage, and that will involve putting it on a USB drive. So no one had anything to say about this, huh? Right, this is coming towards the end of building our ISO. The squashfs image is being compressed, so the whole chroot environment is being pushed into one squashfs file, and then this squashfs file will be wrapped within our ISO. This usually is the process that takes the most time, and this is happening on your computers now, as your CPU and disk gets abused in crunching everything into a nice, small, tight package. We do have some documentation regarding this, obviously in docs.kali.org. Right now it's relevant to Kali 1.0. Hopefully by the 11th, which is the date of the release of 2.0, these documents will be updated with these procedures. But the files and the configuration options are pretty much the same. So you will find these instructions online, both at kali.org/downloads and docs.kali.org. Another interesting live build recipe, which you'll find in the Kali blog, is something that we called the instant evil access point. And this was a live build setup that once again self-installs, and given the correct wireless dongle, will essentially immediately create an evil access point, allowing unsuspecting victims to connect to free Wi-Fi, or whatever you decide to call it, and it does all that wonderful man-in-the-middle stuff. So think about immediate deployments of malicious access points. Again, just by pre-configuring your build, and these are the type of features that we've been investing time and effort in during our development process. We finished officially, so we're 10:45 now. I suspect that you guys will need a few more minutes for your build to complete. Feel free to stay here and ask some questions. Again, we'll be roaming around, so feel free just to wave and we'll come and figure out what's going on. And for those who are leaving, thank you very much for joining us here today.